Yes. So Adriana Ortiz, also a PhD student at the LLE program at OISI. So Adriana, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Okay, so I'm going to present today part of my dissertation as well. I titled this Participative Plurilingual Identity Construction, a Reflexive Model for the Second Language Classroom. To start, I'm going to go with a little bit of an overview of the study, the main aims and objectives. Again, this is just part of a bigger research. The context, the theoretical framework. I'll go over at more detail on the methodology used, how the study was designed, how it was implemented, how the projects or scenarios that the students used were designed and redesigned, how the data was collected, analyzed, and what were the students' impressions. We'll discuss the findings and pedagogical implications and conclusions. So the main aim of this part of my study is to explore the role that reflective practices would have in action-oriented projects and the impact that that would have in the students' plurilingual identity. So the main objectives were to explore the benefits and challenges of self-awareness, self-reflection, and self-assessment, and how to incorporate them, as I said before, in online action-oriented projects. I wanted to also investigate the role that these reflective practices have in the construction of a plurilingual identity and a connection with cultural roots of all the students. And I want to, of course, investigate the possibility or to identify practical insights, recommendations, and strategies for the real language classroom that would support us in this, like to support the construction of a plurilingual identity of our learners. So what's the context? We know the valuable component or the self-awareness, self-reflection as valuable components for a holistic education, for a learner-centered education that goes beyond the linguistic competences. We know self-awareness helps identification with cultural roots, and self-reflection is a vehicle of identity construction. In terms of self-assessment, that helps, of course, with linguistic competence. We know is an essential component of cognitive and constructivist theories of learning and motivation. And we still struggle incorporating these practices, particular self-assessment, in our regular classes for time constraints or beliefs in students, etc. That is, I won't go over that right now, but we do know that these are facts, this is the context, and also we know that there are technologies out there, excuse me, that facilitate the practice, and we still struggle to accommodate them in our, excuse me, in our class. So the theoretical framework of this study draws upon plurilingual pedagogies that recognize the complex phenomenon of our linguistic plurality within individuals, the action-oriented approach that we have discussed, and how to integrate it in our classrooms. The focus on self-awareness and self-reflection leads to a more profound understanding of the self. It goes beyond our cultural knowledge and encourages exploring our own beliefs, our values, our biases. And then we have self-assessment as a tool for empowerment for learner autonomy. So the study was conducted in 2 different sites, synchronous and asynchronous mode, in yearly courses, in 3 different Spanish programs, community engaged language learning, heritage language learners, and high school students. I gathered 41 participants, 37 of those are students. We implemented 8 scenarios in total with different durations depending on the teachers and of course curriculum needs. The levels went from A1 to B2 plus according to CFR proficiency levels. And the scenarios were, or the student projects that we call the scenarios, were based on students and teachers' needs and of course curricular needs. and they were inspired by the LinkedIn catalog, and the platform utilized was the Light, also created by the LinkedIn team. So LinkedIn is a 4-year partnership development grant with over 20 collaborating researchers funded by the Social Science and Humanities Research Council of Canada, whose principal investigator is our own Dr. Enrica Picardo. And so this is a great team that got all these collaborators, researchers, students, and teachers that we have the same objective of fostering linguistic and cultural diversity. So this team developed this digital tool that as I said before, it was used in this study. And the tool is a platform, an e-portfolio, that helps the students navigate their own plurilingual and pluricultural trajectories. And it has self-embedded, self-assessment functions that were utilized in the study. So the way I collected the data was through, as I mentioned, the use of Light and the 3 main functions that the platform offers, which are level checks, mind reflections, and can-do quizzes. I also collected, I conducted teachers' interviews, like electronic students' interviews, teachers and student surveys, students focus groups, and of course all the student work. And the everything was analyzed, or the data analysis was done using in vivo software, and was based on a thematic analysis, and a number of queries were run and based on a matrix coding, which I go over some of the results to explain better my findings in a bit. But it's very important to understand how, how the study was implemented. We need to understand the design of, or the redesign of the scenario. So as I said before, the plan was to observe self-assessment and all these kind of practices in students, and the platforms, the technologies are there. So I was going to use only the catalog from LinkedIn and choose some of the scenarios from there, and the teacher, of course, with the teachers. But then because of COVID, things changed, and classes went online. So we encountered this new challenge where we needed to, see what is the role of the teacher? We need, be very solid with the resources, the online resources, and we need to really pay attention to the online interaction as a competence. So these make me redesign, readapt these scenarios. And the results was these scenarios with, let's say, subtasks that are of authentic nature, just like, of course, action-oriented approach, right? But the themes were personal. Let's say the construct of each step encouraged self-awareness and self-reflection. So it's still 4 or 5 steps, and in each step, the student will have to show something to the teacher. So the teacher will have the opportunity to give feedback and also mark for marking. And then for the self-assessment, as I said before, it was already embedded in the portfolio, in the tool, in the electronic tool that we were using, Light. So that covered the whole thing. They gave, like, as a result, these are reflective scenarios that I want to show today, that we managed to make them fully participative, even if it was online. So I'm going to show just these, an extract of the results for only the plurilingual identity construction. So the analysis of the findings for the parent node, or the main node plurilingual identity, revealed that the students recognize themselves as plurilingual beings with 337 references. The subnode cultural awareness, which implies self-awareness, implies self-reflection, had 213 references. They have this, then we have the sense of community, or communities of practice, which played a significant role in the development of the students' plurilingual identity. Their active participation within the community, being the community engaged language learner, being the heritage language learner communities, help them engage fully in various and different linguistic and cultural practices, along with their own reflective exploration of their own position in that community, which contributed to deepen their sense of plurilingual identity. All the subnotes for the community, for the communities of practice, it has 105 references, 135 references, as you can see, 100 references, reveal the dynamic interplay between community engagement and self-reflection and self-awareness, fostering a rich and multi-layered, I would say, understanding of the students' linguistic repertoires and their place within a broader sociolinguistic landscape. The analysis of the findings, moving on to the main node, language socialization, also reflects learners' self-awareness about the role of the community and outside of the classroom. So we have 79 references and 40 references for students who use family stories as resources, which manifest the connections with their roots. And then if we go quickly to the learning strategies, learning strategies as a main node. For this analysis, I only extracted what the students said about plurilingual identity because they had so much to say about other learning strategies, of course. But related to plurilingual identity, the results indicate that students engage in metacognitive and metalinguistic processes, demonstrating their ability to reflect on their linguistic and cultural experience with 174 references. So I know we're pressed with time, so please read this quote. I just want to highlight that this student captures the essence of self-reflection and self-awareness in the language journey. It talks about thinking more deeply than usual about the communities in the world. Francisco's journey, I would call it self-identification or an intercultural reflection. I think it really showcases vividly the transformative power of self-reflection in the language learning process, when he talks about connecting with his ancestors and through talking to his mother about making a dish. Okay, so just to give you a quick idea, the scenarios, this is one of the scenarios. This is for all the teachers out there. So there's a general description that covers the what, the why, and the how. This one is called así comemos, which is like, that's how we eat. So what? There is a cultural, of course, it's authentic, right? The project has to be authentic and meaningful. So it is the cultural foundation. It's organized in a recipe context to make a collective cookbook. Why? Well, they want to preserve cultural and linguistic heritage and learn about cultural and culinary diversity in Toronto, in their cities. So how? Well, they have to make a recipe following real publishing guidelines. They need to be connected to that dish and like mean something to them. So they will have to explain it in an introduction and a closing statement. And then they have to add a video tutorial. So just to give an idea, this is just an example of one step. Okay, so the step, let's say, has four opportunities for reflection, sometimes reflecting about interculture or just the culture or interculture, and then they have a possibility to evaluate themselves. That's what I mean with saying that the step itself is of constructive, is reflective in nature. So this is an example of another project called Un Blog de Lenguas. This is a blog of languages. So this group of students selected Punjabi as the language that they wanted to foster. They feel that to live in the city of Toronto, you should learn Punjabi. So they created this blog with, they had to research, there's some history about the language, there is talk about the food and the clothing that they wear, etc., all in Spanish, of course. And this one is from Heritage Language Learners. So there is also about my language, and the takes of each student were totally different, but it shows a lot of reflection in their productions. And what I mean with that is like, these that you see here are the titles of their blogs. Okay, so everybody's talking about Challenges for minorities languages. Why we don't learn Spanish, not from here, not from there. All these issues of heritage language learners. And the project was just to create a blog about a language. So at the point of, I categorized them in 3 groups. I felt that all the students or they analyzed and reflected, or they felt linguistic pride or cultural pride, or they talked about how to approach learning strategies to maintain a heritage language. So the reflective task.
Adriana, sorry, a few minutes.
Sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
So the findings are plurilingual identity. Evidently, they connected with the identities. There was connection with family members. They rather learning by doing. They talk about histories and traditions, and they have a real interest about others' cultures. So the pedagogical implications besides learning autonomy is fostering cultural and intercultural awareness. So I guess my concluding remark is when individuals engage in this intracultural reflection, they examine, contemplate their own plurilingualism, whether it's newly emergent aspect of their identity or something that already exists within them. Thank you. Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much.